Research Jam is not a, like piece of equipment for you to rent out or a team of people that will crunch numbers for you. But it's actually technically a undesignated research core, but it leans heavily into the patient engagement side of research. So some of you may find this first part very beneficial, and some of you may have lots of questions for me, and I hope you feel comfortable to ask those. And then the other kind of service that we provide for researchers is really just visual communication, and I think everyone can make use of that. So that'll be probably much less. I'll have to explain that much less. It's a shorter slide count when we get to that part. Okay. So I want to talk today about research that is patient engaged and visually engaging. And what I mean by that is Research Jam was started as a patient engagement core. So looking very specifically at patient-centered outcomes for research and quality of life outcomes, making sure that the research is connecting to, relevant to the people that benefit from it. But I've already said a bunch of stuff, and I want to backtrack a little bit on said research a bunch, and I think we can pretty much all agree with this. There's a lot of definitions, but this is one that I thought is pretty agnostic towards whatever research discipline you're in, right? So we're all doing data collection, documentation, analysis, interpretation, using some sort of academic discipline or framework, so that when we go to write a grant, we can cite that we know what we're doing and that it should be funded, right? So that's research. I'm going to talk about Research Jam today. So what's a jam? These are some great definitions. One of them, of course, is like preserved fruit, but we're going to talk about these two: an informal, freely collaborative meeting, conference, or discussion, or something that one particularly likes, enjoys, or does well. Like this is my jam, right? So what if there was a team that did research with the people that research benefits in an informal, collaborative way? And what if that team loved it and did it well? So welcome to Research Jam. We collaborate with community members, patients, care providers, other researchers. We collaborate with humans using human-centered design research and visual communication to improve health research, health services, and quality of life. I'm going to go through some of these, kind of what human-centered design is and what our process is a little bit. I'm going to dip into a case study that is on the clinical side of things. And I want to, I guess, pause. When I think of it, I'll pause and ask if people have questions, but please take yourself off mute and say, hey, I don't know what that means, or anything else. And we can try to, have a discussion. I don't like, I want to go back a slide. Informal, freely collaborative meeting, conference, or discussion is where I live. So I don't want this to be just 100% didactic. Human-centered design research is the framework that we use. That is the type of research that we do. It is qualitative. It is sometimes an entire research, like it is the entire research, but more often it is like aim 1 or aim 0.5 or whatever, right? Like a very specific part of your research where we want to get to a patient-centered outcome so that we can understand something better, so that we can do this research better. So it's usually a part of someone's larger project. And human-centered design research is this. We keep people in the center. We work on developing empathy with them. We collaborate with them. We externalize ideas by both like in our process of the research and with the participants, by like we make a lot of models, we draw a lot of pictures. We work in a room called design studio with whiteboards and toys and stuff. We create, in an example that I'll give later, we create experiences for people to kind of move through. We want ideas to be, I guess, literally more tangible so that people can then react to them, improve upon them. Involve stakeholders as much as possible, like at every level of the research. And diverging and converging means there are no bad ideas, like we when we're thinking about what methods we want to use, or even sometimes what is the research question. I'd love to talk to all of you about an idea that we've kind of got going on, which is called Aim Zero, which is a lot of researchers walk into research with they know what they want to study and who they want to study with, like who is the population they wish to serve, right? But is that already too late? Like, is it already, you've already skipped a step? Is there a place where you could say, I know I want to work with teens and diabetes. It's passionate to me for X reason, right? And then what if we could then get a bunch of teens with diabetes and you together and just find out what are the issues, the shared issues they have, right? Like if the problem space is diabetes and the population is teens, where are all those overlaps? And is something in there an idea that would make the researcher go, I could get a grant for that. That's a thing that we could work on. And so yeah, we're calling it Aim Zero. It doesn't exist yet, but I'd love to get people's thoughts about that sometime in this conversation. Okay, so diverge and converge. And then most importantly is be comfortable with ambiguity. If you don't know what I'm talking about, welcome to human-centered design research. A lot of times you're getting answers to things that you don't know when it's going to click. When is this going to connect to the thing that I'm doing? And that's the nature of human-centered design research. It really is after you start to converge these ideas, after you start putting multiple kind of results of sessions together, is when you start seeing the thing that other people will say, oh, well, wasn't it obvious? Like, it wasn't obvious. It was ambiguous until it was obvious. So that's a really big overview on human-centered design research. Again, it's qualitative and it's mainly really patient-centered outcomes research. Right in that community engagement kind of domain of things. So if you want to use Research Jam in your projects, it's because you want knowledge that you don't have. You want to know things that you don't already know. There are people that want to do like community engaged research or patient engaged research to kind of check a box sometimes, and that's fine. I don't honestly know that you can mess up, right? If you're engaging with the community in an honorable way, you're actually listening to them. I think whatever it is that you're doing will benefit. So there's maybe no wrong ways. There's definitely a right way, and the right way is to allow a space for you to get information you didn't even know you wanted. You just know that you don't know things and you want to know more things. And similarly, the participants in said research also don't know that they know things. And so we have you know, in qualitative research, you basically were up here often, interviews and focus groups, and you're going to get explicit knowledge. You ask a question, you're going to get an answer to that question. And that's where a lot of bias comes in. Like, you don't want to lead them. You don't want to, if you show them two things, they're just going to choose one of them instead of maybe dig deeper into why the two things even exist. If you observe them, you are going to see what they do, and observable knowledge is, I think, very beneficial. But if you want to get to knowledge that they don't know that they have, or that they don't know how to express, you get into these deep methods, generative activities, where we get into tacit and latent knowledge. And we learn things that, you know, the principal investigator didn't know that they needed in their study, and that the participant didn't know they were an expert in. Real quick, I want to go back to this. The fundamental kind of key, keep putting and keeping people in the center for human-centered design research, is those people are experts, and we do not engage with them unless we want their expert consultants, you know, their expert consult on this project. Like patient engagement and patient engaged research is you as a researcher needing expert help, and us finding those experts and talking to them and giving you that expert help, right? That's what it is. And so you're not there to teach them. You're not there to kind of have them validate what you like. You're there to learn from them. And so that's where we get this session after session. We get investigators saying, like, I learned so much, I would have never thought to have gone in this direction. And that's the outcome we always want, right? As well as whatever research question you have being answered, sure. Real quick, we again, this is an academic discipline, so we do have our models for how we do our research, gathering, analyzing, synthesizing data. We do it in this, it's called a CASP model, where we go from what is, collecting raw data, we analyze it without interpretation, then we interpret it, that moves synthesis to what could be, then we move to prototype. The cool thing about human-centered design is there's an iterative process. Once you have a prototype, people will use it. We can collect data on how they used it. We can analyze, that information, synthesize it, prototype it better. There is no perfect. There is, let's try to make something with people and then see if it works. And that something can be, iPhones were made using this methodology, as well as finding new domains in people with ADHD to measure whether or not their treatments are working. So, it spans that whole, it is discipline agnostic, right? So that's a case study. So are there any questions on human-centered design research in general?
Hi, Justin.
Hey, hello.
I'm sorry, my name is Reza. I am basically a faculty of pediatrics in research, basic research.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that what you are saying is applying for the basic research as well or not.
Absolutely. So basic research is right. You're not using people, right? You're not even getting anywhere close to people.
Well, actually, we get the sample from the patients in a surgery room.
Right, but everything, exactly. So the context of your research, if you think about all of the issues that came up with the HeLa cells, right? That
correct. It's tissue, basically, the tumor tissue. I'm a cancer researcher, so we basically get the tissue, cancer tissue from the patient in the surgery.
Right. So all of the issues around the study itself, like how do you approach the people? How do you recruit for the studies? How do you, or not even necessarily a study, just how do you recruit for the thing that you're doing? If there are barriers in that between you and the people, that is where human-centered design research helps, right? So
Got
it,
it.
yeah.
Thank
And
you.
the example I'm about to jump into, we will discuss that.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay, so there is real quick, there is the FitCore, which does scans, like imaging scans for brain activity to work on like Alzheimer's type research. And we've done a lot of work with them because they have a hard time not just getting people interested in giving them samples, like I'm healthy, why would I want to give you a sample? Or I don't want to know if I'm, going to have Alzheimer's. I don't want to deal with that. But then also, how do we talk about our work after that to industry and to disseminate to other things? So like anytime your research needs to interact with humans, anytime barriers come up, that's where we're dealing with. All right. So we're going to talk about a case study. This was a clinical issue. The investigator didn't know whether robotic assisted laparoscopic surgery or open surgery if one of them needed to be phased out. Basically, if a surgeon does open surgery, they say, no, there's always going to be a reason for open surgery. And the robotic assisted surgery experts were like, I can't think of a reason why we would ever use open surgery in this case, which was UPJ obstructions. So that was the issue. How do we do a randomized control trial of accepted surgeries to see if one of them needs to be phased out? And so we kind of mapped this out, and that makes sense. We'll know without the lens of the doctor's bias influencing the patients whether or not the results are the same, or if they both do have their reasons, right? The barrier was, how do you ask a parent to let to say like, hey, we're going to give your child a surgery. You're not going to know which one. You're not going to know who the doctor is. You're not going to know you're not even going to know what surgery they had for the 48 hours after their surgery, right? So this was deemed kind of like an impossible thing, and a lot of people got interested in seeing if it could be possible. And so they only up front, I will tell you, the only needed 10 people to be in this study, because I think the powers that be said, you're not even going to get 10 people, but sure, let's give it a shot. And so they only needed to recruit 10 people, and they couldn't recruit anyone, right? This was what we came up with as a study plan. There's lots of sessions in here, and a session means different things. But again, these are all jams, right? These are all small group sessions of people where we have informal discussions and use cool generative techniques, etc. So first session is what I'm going to talk about. We did addressed measurement and acceptability. So we wanted to find out, like, how did you know your surgery was the best surgery for your child, and what would be acceptable to being like having your child be into a random control trial, right? And we had parents of kids that had the robotic assisted, parents of kids that had the open, and the activities looked like this. Why did you choose one surgery over another? Was it a choice? We had them write how you felt at each moment of a surgery, like when you found out that there was a obstruction, when you met with the referring doctor. Every moment of that journey, we had them fill out kind of what they remembered about how they felt at each thing. So, and then they considered all of that and wrote letters back to them in the past, like what would you have told yourself back then that you know now to ask or whatever. And we had lots of discussions around this, etc. The result of that, remember that this was just session 1, like we did more stuff after that. But the result of all of those things were a communication strategy where this is just for recruitment, right? We handled recruitment. That was our problem. So the deliverable one is like a recruitment flyer, like a brochure that you could give to people and they could look at. And it got to the things that people said in these jams, right? What they were concerned about, which is how much time things take, what the wounds are, like what does recovery look like. And it told them why we need to do a study. We found out from a lot of the people we talked about that they didn't really understand what randomized control trial was. Then we did the Coke Pepsi thing and everyone was like, oh yeah, I remember that Coke Pepsi thing, the blind taste test, right? So we had doctors saying the words randomized control trial and they didn't know what that meant. No, and then we said blind taste test and that was it, right? So we did that. And we made this little brochure to give them, and that was fine. We also made a video, which we can watch this video. If you guys know Aaron Carroll, this is him talking to himself, which I think is the person he most likes to talk to. So this was good. But we wrote the script for this and went through with series of patients where they really looked at the words that we were using and lots and lots of tweaking until it became this.
The tests we've done indicate that your child has a ureteropelvic junction obstruction. This means the tube that comes from your child's kidney, the ureter, has a part right where it connects to the kidney that is very narrow. Too narrow for urine to pass through like it's supposed to. Luckily, this is easy to fix with a surgery called pyeloplasty. We'll use an anesthetic so that your child will be asleep the whole time, and we'll detach the ureter from the kidney, remove the narrow part, and reattach it where the ureter has a nice opening to allow for normal urine flow. There are a couple different approaches to this procedure. Different doctors are expert in one or the other. Some surgeons, like me, use an approach called an open pyeloplasty. Others, like me, use what's called robotic-assisted pyeloplasty. In the open approach, we make an incision here, about this big, so we can fix the blockage. The incision size is dependent upon the size and age of your child. In the robotic approach, the surgeon controls everything through a robotic-assisted arm. This allows us to use very small instruments and do the whole procedure through 3 small incisions, there, and there. One incision is for a miniature camera, and the other 2 are for the instruments. And remember that the approach I use has a success rate of greater than 95%. Nice! My approach takes a few hours and typically involves a 1 to 2 night stay in the hospital. Mine too. In both approaches, your child will go home with some bandages on the site of the surgery and a small device called a stent inside the ureter to keep it from closing up during the healing process. Right. Also, a string attached to the stent will hang out a couple of inches from your child's urethra, where they pee from, during the recovery period. In either approach, this stent can cause some bladder spasms, a gotta-go sensation, burning sensation, and blood in the urine. Recovery is typically 1 to 2 weeks, during which time your child will want to take it pretty easy. Same here. When your child is fully recovered, you or your child can safely remove the stent by pulling the string that comes out of the urethra. It's not painful, but it's obviously pretty weird and can cause some anxiety in children. If you'd be more comfortable having the stent removed by a doctor, just let your surgeon, like me, or me know, and they'll take care of it. So as you can see, both approaches give us the same medical result, a patched up ureter and a perfectly operating kidney. So how do we know which one to recommend to families? The short answer is we don't. Usually a surgeon recommends the approach that they specialize in, which is fine, but it means you're getting the approach most appropriate for your surgeon, not necessarily the one most appropriate for your child. In order to figure out which approach is more appropriate in different circumstances, we need to do a study. People in the study would get one of two highly skilled surgeons picked randomly to perform the operation, one specializing in robotic, the other in open. You'd get to meet and talk to both of these surgeons beforehand. And both surgeons will be there during the procedure, so you won't have a bias that can influence your perception of your child's recovery. We'll even bandage up both sites so that for the first 24 hours, you won't know where the incision is. Before you leave the hospital, we'll check the incision site and the mystery will be over. But we think that brief amount of unbiased time will help us immensely. Basically, we don't want your expectations of pain and recovery time to influence your perceptions of pain and recovery time. When the study is completed, we'll look at the two surgeries in an unbiased way and learn if they might have aspects that are better for certain cases, or maybe they're exactly the same and we should phase one out. Essentially, we would know how to answer better the question, which approach would be best for your child? That's what we're trying to do.
So that was that thing. The objective was, how might we make a randomized controlled trial acceptable to parents of children with UPJ obstruction? This was a small trial of 10 participants. They asked 11 before they got all 10. The first 9 said yes, the 10th one said, no, and then the 11th one said yes. And what we learned from that, in creating that, is down here on the right. But there's a lot of things in that video that you might just think we're there because we're smart, we're obvious, but everything that he said, I know because I wrote the script, everything that he said went through patients that said, the one that stands out to me is, that I totally forgot about, was we'll even cover both sites up so you don't know which one is which. Instead of saying, we'll have both sites covered up so you don't know which one is which. We made it like, when we changed it to even, the parents were like, oh, that makes it even more fair. And all of a sudden it was a question about fairness, which was very cool, right? So things that we learned was, the word surgery is strong. You'll notice he never said we have 2 surgeries. He said there's 2 approaches. The really cool, unexpected insight is that, every parent, whether robotic or open, in the previous cases, that the groups that we brought in, one of the biggest concerns, was the stent removal, which I typed stent here, unfortunately, was the stent removal, and how they were not prepared for it, and how the child did not want to go back to that doctor after that. And that came up in this jam, and it was something that the PIs were like, oh, I've never heard this. No one's ever come to us with this, because it was knowledge that the parents didn't know they needed to share with people. Like, the doctors know what is best, so they said this was best. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to talk about it. So it came up in those studies, and all they had to do was say, this is very weird, and if you don't want to deal with it, the weirdness of it, let us know. And then that just completely changed the perspective of, or perception of, that event, both with the parents and the children, right? So those kinds of things are like why we do patient engagement, what patient-centered outcomes really means, right? We think we know what the medical outcome is. We think we know what their outcome is, but if we're not talking to them, we don't know. So that was that whole thing. It was not just successful, but like crazy and fun. I think has a lot of implications for surgery down the road, as far as like, and just science down the road. How do you talk to parents about, or the public about what you're doing in a way that invites them into it and gives them kind of, changes their idea of it from maybe it's scary to I have a right to have this research done, right? It's I want to know what's best for my child, and therefore I will do this thing. A lot of what you saw in this last case study was design deliverables, right? It is a brochure or pamphlet or something that helps you communicate with your patients, with your funders, with whomever.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, shoot, what's your question?
My question right now is, what was the outcome at this point to recruit patients or to have the best surgical outcome?
So the outcome for us was to recruit patients. So we were one part of a bigger study. The outcome for the study was to have the best surgical outcome, right? So they wanted to know if open pyeloplasty or robotic pyeloplasty was the best surgery. And there was no medical information on that. They were equal, they were completely equal in everything that the kind of, discipline of medicine could determine. So, to do a randomized control trial is what you're supposed to do when two things are equal. So that was the larger thing. But the barrier was they couldn't recruit for that because they couldn't recruit parents to have their kids be in a randomized control trial for surgery, a surgical randomized control trial. So our part of it was just to understand what motivated people to be in this type of trial, and how could we, and what biases were inherent in it, and could we remove those and communicate in a way to like get to their motivations without kind of preying on their fears and really their kind of misinformation about science, right? Does that answer that question?
Yep.
All right, great. Okay, so Research Jam is expensive. Every time we meet with patients, you have to, any participant are expert consultants. We pay them. We give them $50 an hour. We give them lunch. Then we have overhead, like all of that. Research Jam's expensive. So if you don't need that, but you like the end result of communicating with different people better, communicating your science with different people better, we can do that too. So visual translation of complex scientific concepts. You don't necessarily need to have a session with people and go over everything if it's something pretty easy, right? If it's something that like, I just need to explain this difficult concept visually so that people get it. So we also have, and also this whole thing, the visual communication core, came from everyone loving the results of Research Jam and saying like, there is a need just for the results part in cases that don't need the human-centered design. And we are 100% in agreement. Not everything needs human-centered design. It's great when you need it. Sometimes you just need a survey, right? Sometimes you don't need, sometimes you're just in basic science, like, and you don't need any of the patient expert consultants because they're not experts in what you're doing, right? But you still need to communicate what you're doing to certain people. And you went to school for years and years and years and years in medicine, not in art, right? So, so we saw a need and we're filling that need. So there is a fee-for-service design resource, and we, specialize in research, public health, and community engagement. Basic research is part of that, and our services include what's listed there. So I'm calling it Indiana CTSI Design Services for now, but I might change it. I might get bored. Who knows? So like we do grant figures. Here are some. I'm gonna just kind of scroll through these, but to give you an idea of the, I guess, depth and breadth of our work. So some more grant figures. Oh, here's that data mart for the fit core. The trustworthiness model that CTSI is doing a lot of work on right now. We have, information graphics, medical illustration. We can get more realistic. Most people don't want the realism, right? The simplification. So, but medical illustration style stuff. And then we have education awareness. So this would be how do we communicate to a population about what's important without saying, without using all of the words that we use in medicine. This is my favorite example because researchers tend to be completionists or completists. Is that the right word? We want everyone to know everything. We don't want to we don't want to withhold information because that seems maybe like we're hiding something, right? We want to be very ethical and transparent. But if you're trying to talk about the pancreas, don't show the lungs and intestine that, you're burying the thing that you're trying to talk about. So this one illustration is my metaphor for how we should be communicating to audiences, right? We're talking about the pancreas, so we'll just put lungs and stuff and guts or whatever on this. The PI involved in this study was skeptical, and the audience was adolescent, really junior high age, and they loved it. They understood everything. They passed the test at the end, right? So it's for them, not for. A lot of times, you have to remember that the communication that you're doing is for your audience, not for you. You already know your stuff, right? But we need to make it for them. So lots of working to translate your science to something that people can look at and understand, and it gives them kind of a call to action, and stop me if any of this is interesting and you want me to talk about the actual projects. And then recruitment and other study tools. I am still blown away by the number of, in 2023, the number of flyers I see that are black and white and say, there's this study, and they have, the cuts on the bottom even still, but then posted online. If that's you, that's fine. Again, you went to school for science. But we want to recruit people in a place that talks to them, not talks to scientists, right? So these are examples of that. This one animates, is pretty cool. And yeah, that is the services we offer. One is really top to bottom qualitative research in patient engagement. And the other is just, hey, you can hire a designer to design your stuff. You don't have to make all your presentations yourself and try to put figures in for a grant that, you hope will communicate to the right person or something. So any questions or feedback or anything?
Dustin, maybe you could talk about the time frame that it takes to do these different types of projects.
Yeah. Let me buzz through. Okay, so this was a very involved project. So you will see that it had 5 sessions. These were probably I want to say twice a month or so. So this would have been 1, 2, maybe 3 months, and then 3 months post-study. And then we follow up with people for 3 months post-study to then do a a final revision, right?
Mhm.
That was after, you know, planning, et cetera, et cetera. So this was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 month project. It was a big one. It was a really, really, really big one. And 6 months is, I would say, the longest on that type of project for patient engagement. We do also, and we're involved in like 3 of them, I think, like 5-year projects where we just check in once or twice a year with the group that is benefiting from the research, the expert consultants, and say, hey, this is where the scientists are right now. Like, what does that mean to you? How can we better talk about it? Are they missing a point somewhere, et cetera, right? So we'll do those kinds of things too. But for a project where you would hire Research Jam to do AIM 2 for you, I feel like a 2 to 3 month turnaround is pretty average, because there's recruitment, there's, you know, the study plan, and we work with the PI like along the way. I will say that it is quicker and easier if you go into it with if you go into it with, I'm really excited about Research Jam's process, human-centered design research, and I'm interested in how it can work to answer this question I have. And that question is largely, you know, I want to explore where my science intersects with the people that benefit from it. We can do 1 or 2 sessions, you know, answer your research question, address your barrier, et cetera, and turn that around quickly. A lot of the things that take a long time are when we have to tease apart what you're really trying to get from these people as experts. You know, we still get researchers come to us and want to like educate people, and like that's not patient engaged research, that's dissemination, you know. They have a thing and they want to teach people about it and see what they think about it. And like, well, that takes a long time because now we need to tease apart, you know, what they're an expert in. So yeah, that's that. And then the design services, these can be done like this was a week, this project. So a lot of this was probably this big thing was probably 2 weeks, you know. So usually between 1 to a week to a month turnaround on these, and that turnaround is basically on how hard it is to get feedback, how hard it is to get those meetings together and move to the next step sometimes, right? Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? If not, I had another one. So for the patient engagement research, I mean, if it's going to be, you know, a lengthy amount of time, do people, I assume, do they put you on the grant as a co-investigator? Or do you assist in writing those kinds of grants also?
Yeah, so if you want to use patient engagement in your research, you will be having a meeting, usually with Sarah Weehee or Billy Bennett, and say like, yeah, I want to do a whole patient engagement part. I want to do a whole like quality of life component or patient-centered outcomes component. And we'll work with you to write that AIM, and we'll give you, you know, all of the citations you need and the references, and then, you know, 3 months later your grant hits, and then we start planning the actual project. So yes, almost all written into a grant months before we do it. Very rarely do we do a thing. A couple times people have said, I have this huge grant, we have money left, and we have this problem that isn't being met. Can we, you know, meet with the community to try to like pivot on this grant? And we'll do that. And that's often a adherence research adherence or research recruitment.
Any other questions? Well, if not, this is really great. I learned a lot, and I think this will be beneficial to a lot of our clinical researchers, as well as, you know, researchers that want to do more translational research. So this is really a nice addition to our technology.
That's great. It's
So,
funny
thank
because,
you.
like, yeah, we use Post-it notes. We're not a technology. I mean, our logo is a Post-it note, right? So, like, yeah. Well, that's great. I hope that the people that are doing the basic science, I want you to, you know, try to use our services. I want to understand how we can exist in that space where basic science translates to something else, or something else translate to basic science, right? So even if you don't have an idea for a project, like, I hope you reach out to you know, me or Dr. Weehee, and just like sit down and have a beer and say, how can community engagement work with basic science more? Because I think that's a fascinating area to explore. So